She used to text you first, laugh at your jokes, seem obsessed. But the moment you became too available, too eager, she pulled away. Why does that happen? Because attention is currency. And the one who controls his emotions controls the game. This isn't about mind games. It's about ancient power, Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches you to master yourself, not manipulate others. When you truly detach, when your self-worth isn't tied to her response, everything shifts. The moment you stop chasing, stop needing, and focus entirely on your purpose, she feels that energy. And she can't help but notice. Because here's the truth, presence is rare. Most men are desperate for attention, constantly proving themselves, constantly reaching out. But a Stoic man, he's calm, grounded, focused. He's not ignoring her to punish or provoke, he's simply aligned with something greater than her approval. In this video, we're diving deep into why ignoring her works, not as a tactic, but as a byproduct of real inner strength. We'll break down the psychology of attraction, the Stoic mindset, and how to reclaim your emotional power. If you're tired of overthinking and being overlooked, this is your wake-up call. The shift starts now. Let's begin. Most men don't even realize they're giving their power away. They double-text, over-explain, constantly check their phone hoping she replied. They rearrange their day, their goals, even their values, just for the chance to be liked, noticed, or chosen. That's not attraction. That's desperation masked as effort. And she can feel it. Attraction doesn't grow when you chase. It grows when you don't need to. When you're calm in chaos, when you stay composed no matter what she says or does, that's when she starts to wonder, who is this guy? Most men chase because they think they can control the outcome. If I just say the right thing, if I show her how much I care, if I'm always there, she'll finally see my worth. But here's the brutal truth. The more you try to prove yourself, the more invisible you become. Why? Because women don't want a man who needs them to feel whole. They want a man who is whole, with or without them. This brings us to Stoicism, the forgotten art of masculine power. A philosophy not of weakness, but of immense inner strength. At the heart of Stoicism is one core principle. Control what you can. Let go of what you can't. That means your mindset, your discipline, your actions, your purpose, that's your territory. Her feelings, her choices, whether she texts back or ghosts you, not your territory. Yet most men live the other way around. They obsess over what she thinks, how she feels, whether she's losing interest. They pour all their energy into her, while neglecting the only thing they actually control, themselves. The Stoics knew this centuries ago. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Think about that. How many times have you given up your peace trying to manage someone else's attention? How often have you tried to earn affection, instead of embodying self-respect? The more you cling, the more she pulls away. Not because she's cruel, but because no one wants to carry the weight of someone else's neediness. You may think you're loving her, but what she feels is pressure. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic master, put it like this: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is where everything changes. When you stop reacting to her every move, you become immovable. You stop asking, "Why didn't she reply?" and start asking, "Why does it matter?" When you stop trying to impress, you become impressive. When you stop trying to control her attention, you become the man who commands respect by how little he needs it. The illusion of control is one of the most common traps in dating. It makes you believe that love can be won with effort, that if you just try hard enough, she'll stay. But the truth? Love that must be chased was never real to begin with. Because anything worth having doesn't require begging, proving, or performing. It requires alignment. And alignment only comes when you know who you are, with or without her. This is where Stoicism gives you an edge no game or pickup line ever could. It teaches you to sit in silence, to remain grounded, to choose yourself, even when the world tempts you to chase someone else. So before we go any deeper into why ignoring her can shift the dynamic, you must first understand this. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to choose. Not her. Not any woman. But yourself. And when you finally do, when you live that truth in your habits, your posture, your vibe, she'll feel it. She won't know why. But she'll feel it. And that's when everything starts to change. Because power doesn't chase. It attracts. Let's talk about detachment. Not the cold, bitter kind where you pretend not to care. Not the fake aloofness where you're secretly obsessing behind the scenes. We're talking about real detachment. The kind that comes from being so focused on your mission, so grounded in your value, that whether she stays or goes doesn't shake your core. See, the power of detachment isn't about punishing her. It's about protecting you. Because the truth is, most men are addicted to attention. They don't even realize it. They chase texts like dopamine hits. They overthink every reply. They crave constant reassurance. But a Stoic man? He understands something deeper. Validation is temporary. Purpose is permanent. Let me put it this way. If you're emotionally invested in her response more than in your own growth, you're already out of balance. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means independence. You don't stop caring about her. You stop needing her approval to feel complete. That's the shift. When you're detached, you become the rarest man in the room. You're calm when others are anxious. Centered when others are reactive. And that energy, it's magnetic. Because women can sense it. They feel when a man is free. Free from neediness. Free from insecurity. Free from that low vibration energy of, please like me. And here's the psychology behind it. Humans crave what's scarce. We're wired to value what's hard to get. It's called the intermittent reward effect. When something is not always available, we become more obsessed with getting it. Think about slot machines. They don't give a reward every time. But the possibility that a win is coming keeps people addicted. Now apply that to dating. If she always knows where you are, always knows you'll reply, always knows you're available at her convenience, there's no mystery, no tension, no polarity. But when you detach, when you stop trying to be everywhere, you create space. And space builds curiosity. Curiosity builds attraction. Here's the twist though, this can't be faked. If you ignore her on purpose just to make her chase, she'll see through it. Women are emotionally intuitive. They know when a man's calm, and when a man's pretending to be calm. Real detachment isn't an act. It's an outcome. An outcome of being so locked into your mission, so confident in your worth, that you don't flinch when she pulls away. You don't chase. You don't panic. You keep building. Because you know this. The right woman will never need to be convinced. She'll be drawn in by your silence more than by your strategies. Think of it like this. She's the ocean. Most men are waves, always crashing, trying to impress, trying to be seen. But you're the shoreline, still, firm, unshaken. She comes and goes, but you remain. And guess what? That stillness is what draws her in again. Because here's the paradox. The more you try to hold on to someone, the more likely they are to slip away. But the moment you let go, not out of anger, not out of fear, but from true inner peace, that's when they start to come back. It's not manipulation. It's nature. Attraction is a dance. Too close, and it smothers. Too far, and it disappears. But perfect detachment, it creates rhythm, flow, tension, magnetism. You become a man she wants to understand, not one she's trying to avoid. Because now, you're not predictable. You're not needy. You're not common. And remember, a man who detaches isn't rejecting her, he's respecting himself. He doesn't chase love. He invites it. And if it doesn't come, he's still good. Because his purpose is bigger than any single person. Let me say that again. Your purpose must be bigger than her presence. Because when you put a woman at the center of your world, you lose the gravitational pull of your own identity. Detach from outcome. Detach from approval. Detach from the illusion that her attention defines your value. This is the kind of man who doesn't just get noticed. He gets remembered. And when you start to embody this level of calm, composed, grounded energy, she'll feel it in your silence more than she ever felt it in your words. So if you're asking, should I text her back? Ask yourself instead, am I operating from strength or seeking comfort? Because the power of detachment isn't just about dating, it's a way of life. It's how you carry yourself in business, in your friendships, in every challenge you face. And here's the final truth. The man who is willing to walk away, who isn't afraid of losing her, who's completely committed to his mission, that's the man she won't want to walk away from. Now let's break it down psychologically. Why does ignoring her work? It all comes back to one powerful principle: reactance. Reactance is a psychological phenomenon where people have a natural, automatic resistance to losing their freedom. When something or someone becomes less available, our brain perceives it as more valuable. Ever heard the phrase, "We want what we can't have"? That's not just a saying, it's science. When you're always there, always responding, always reaching out, there's no mystery. She feels in control. She knows she has you. And that comfort kills curiosity. It suffocates attraction. But the moment you pull back, genuinely, not as a tactic, her brain starts firing in a different way. Now she's asking, why isn't he texting me back? Did I do something wrong? Is he losing interest? Who else has his attention? Suddenly, you're not the man trying to win her. You're the mystery she's trying to solve. Let me give you an example. There was a classic experiment where participants were shown two identical jars of cookies. Same brand, same taste, same packaging. One jar had 10 cookies. The other only had 2. Guess which jar people said had the better cookies? The one with 2. Why? Because scarcity creates value. And that's exactly what happens when you stop over-pursuing. You become the man in short supply. And her brain lights up with curiosity, challenge, and desire. Here's the twist. This only works when you actually embody the qualities that make your presence valuable. Detachment alone means nothing if you don't also project confidence, purpose, and peace. So let's go deeper. Women, biologically and socially, are wired to respond to high-value behavior. And high value isn't about money or looks, it's about energy. It's how you carry yourself. It's the self-assurance in your tone, the way you move through the world without needing anyone's approval. When you ignore her, not out of spite, but because you're genuinely focused on your own life, that self-assuredness is felt. She starts to view you differently. You're not chasing. You're not begging. You're choosing. And that flips the script. Because now, she's in the position of seeking validation. She's the one wondering what's going on. She's the one rechecking your stories, asking her friends for advice, overanalyzing your silence. And it's not because she's insecure. It's because you've activated a deeper part of her psychology, the part that craves challenge, values confidence, and respects independence. Let me tell you a story. There was a guy, let's call him Mark. Mark used to be the classic, nice guy. Always texting first. Always complimenting. Always available. He was dating this girl who seemed into him at first. But over time, she got distant. Started replying slower. Stopped initiating. Eventually ghosted him. So Mark did something radical. He stopped chasing. Not out of anger. Not to manipulate. He just focused on himself. He hit the gym harder. Launched a side hustle. Hung out with his boys. Didn't post much. Didn't text her. A few weeks later, guess who texted him? She did. Out of nowhere. Why? Because she felt the shift. He wasn't orbiting around her anymore. He had become the sun in his own universe. Now listen closely. Ignoring her doesn't work if you're obsessing behind the scenes. It doesn't work if you're doing it just to get a reaction. That's not ignoring, that's emotional manipulation. Real power comes when you don't need the reaction at all. Because when you truly embody detachment, you don't just disappear, you evolve. You grow into a version of yourself that is so full, so complete, so on purpose, that her attention becomes a bonus, not the goal. And guess what? That's when attraction flourishes. Because the woman who once pulled away now senses something she didn't before. The absence of pressure. The presence of peace. The energy of a man who's not looking to be chosen, because he's already chosen himself. And in a world full of noise, neediness, and desperation, that silence is loud. That silence makes her curious. That silence makes her come closer. So yes, ignoring works. But not because it's a game. Because it breaks the cycle of validation-seeking behavior that kills attraction. Reactance. Scarcity. Mystery. Value. These aren't tricks. They're truths. Grounded in how the human brain responds to uncertainty, challenge, and confidence. And the man who understands this, he doesn't chase. He doesn't beg. He builds. And she can't help but notice. Let's talk about the real secret behind all of this. Detachment is power. You see, ignoring her isn't about playing cold games or trying to hurt someone's feelings. It's about stepping into the most powerful place a man can operate from, emotional detachment. Now pause. When most guys hear detachment, they think it means not caring. But that's not it at all. Detachment doesn't mean you don't love. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't let your emotions control your behavior. You don't place your worth in someone else's hands. It means this: I want her, but I don't need her. That one line right there, that's freedom. Stoicism teaches this principle deeply. The idea that we control only two things: our actions and our judgments. Everything else, what she says, what she does, how she feels, is not your responsibility. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's detachment. That's where your strength lies. Because a man who is not emotionally dependent cannot be manipulated. He can't be pulled off course by a text. He doesn't crumble when someone pulls away. Why? Because his value comes from within. He wakes up knowing who he is. He's not on a quest to be validated, he's already rooted. Here's the problem. Most guys build their emotional world around women. They get a little attention, a little affection, and suddenly she becomes the sun. Every decision revolves around her. What she's thinking, when she's texting, how she's acting. That's emotional slavery. You've handed her the remote to your inner world. And the moment she senses that, game over. Because women can feel when your energy is needy, when you're waiting for her, when your happiness is tied to her response. She might not say it, but deep down, she starts to lose respect. Not because she's cold or evil, but because biologically, women are drawn to strength. Not physical strength, emotional strength. Detachment is that strength. Think about it. Every high-value man you've ever admired, real or fictional, had this energy. They don't chase. They don't beg. They don't explode when things don't go their way. They respond with calm, with presence, with power. They love, but they never lose themselves. And here's the paradox. The less you cling, the more you attract. The less you need her, the more she wants to be around you. Because detachment is rare. Most people are walking around triggered, reactive, and desperate for attention. But when you walk into a room and you're good with or without anyone's approval, that energy is magnetic. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, let's call him James. James was in a situationship. The girl he liked would come close, then pull away. She'd flirt, then ghost. Hot, then cold. At first, James played the game. Texted more. Tried harder. Worried constantly. Then one day he stopped. Not because he was angry, but because he woke up. He realized how much time, peace, and mental energy he was giving to someone who wasn't giving it back. So he unplugged, went silent, focused on himself. No fake stories, no shady posts. He just lived. And guess what happened? A week later, she messaged him. Not because he ignored her to manipulate, but because the detachment reset the dynamic. She felt the difference. She sensed the absence. And suddenly, he wasn't the same guy chasing. He had elevated. He had boundaries. He had standards. Detachment isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of self-love. It's knowing that your peace is not for sale. That your time and energy are sacred. That you are whole, with or without her. Now ask yourself, can you be that man? Can you walk away without bitterness? Can you stay calm when she tests you? Can you choose your peace over proving a point? Because when you can, you're no longer just attractive. You're unforgettable. That's the kind of man who lives rent-free in her mind. The one who didn't beg. The one who didn't explode. The one who just walked with dignity. That energy lingers. So yes, ignore her when needed. Pull back when disrespected. Detach when you're not valued. But most importantly, detach from the outcome. Let go of needing things to go your way. Let go of obsessing over her opinion. Let go of needing her to see your worth. Because your worth, it's not up for negotiation. You already have it. Now act like it. Detachment is power. Own it. Let's wrap this up by making it practical. You've heard why ignoring her works. You've seen the psychology. You understand the power of detachment. Now the question is, how do you actually do it? How do you master the art of ignoring without becoming cold, toxic, or manipulative? It starts with one thing: intention. You're not ignoring her to play games. You're not doing it to punish her. You're doing it to protect your peace and to break the pattern of overinvesting in someone who hasn't earned that energy. This is the first rule. Ignore with purpose, not with bitterness. You're not ghosting. You're not being passive-aggressive. You're simply choosing not to chase, not to over-explain, and not to fight for attention that isn't freely given. That means, stop double texting. Stop checking her stories constantly. Stop trying to force connection where there is distance. Pull back. Refocus. Let the silence speak for itself. But here's the key: what you do during that silence is everything. You don't just sit and wait. You don't obsess over her next move. You build. You hit the gym. You work on your craft. You level up socially, financially, mentally, and spiritually. Because ignoring her is not about making her feel less, it's about making yourself more. Now let's be clear. Ignoring doesn't mean being emotionally unavailable. True masculine energy is calm, grounded, and emotionally intelligent. You're not cutting her off every time you don't get your way. You're not weaponizing silence. You're simply not overextending your energy when it's not being matched. That's maturity. Here's a good rule of thumb: reciprocation or redirection. If she's giving effort, give effort. If she's pulling away, redirect your focus. That's it. Now, what if she reaches out? What if, after you've pulled back, she starts messaging again? You stay calm. You don't rush. You don't explode with excitement. You don't jump right back into old patterns. You move slowly, intentionally, and with boundaries. Why? Because the goal isn't just to get her back. The goal is to build a dynamic where respect and attraction are mutual. And that starts with showing that you're not just available because she decided to come back. You're available because she's earned her way back into your life, through consistency, effort, and sincerity. This is how you stay in your power. Now let's talk about the dangers. Because if you do this wrong, it backfires. If you ignore her with bitterness, she'll feel it. If you ignore her but secretly stalk her socials, she'll sense it. If you ignore her just to manipulate her emotions, it becomes toxic. That's not Stoicism. That's insecurity in disguise. The real art of ignoring is actually an art of self-respect. It's choosing to no longer be a man who begs, over-explains, or pleads for love. It's choosing to lead with silence when words are being wasted, to walk away when peace is being disturbed, to release what isn't yours to hold. And that takes strength, because everything in you will want to react, to chase, to convince. But you don't. You breathe. You sit in the discomfort. You let the storm pass, and when it does, you'll still be standing. Stronger, clearer, unbothered. That's how leaders move. That's how high-value men live. Let me give you a final example. There was a guy named Elijah. Every girl he dated, he chased. Texted non-stop. Got attached quickly. Tried to impress, overdo, overgive. And every time, it ended the same. She lost interest. He got hurt. He blamed women. But then Elijah did something different. He stopped chasing. He didn't become cold. He became composed. He didn't start playing games. He started playing life, with purpose. He focused on his business, his mindset, his body, his circle of influence. The next woman he met was drawn to him, not because of what he said, but because of who he was. And when she pulled away briefly, he didn't panic. He stayed focused. And because he didn't chase, she came back, stronger, more respectful, more invested. Not because he manipulated her, but because his energy was unshakable. That's the art. So here's your takeaway. Ignore not out of hate, but from strength. Pull back not to provoke, but to protect. Detach not to punish, but to elevate. Because the man who learns to value his energy, time, and peace becomes the man no one wants to lose. She can't ignore that. Now that you've stopped chasing, what comes next? This is where most guys get it wrong. They ignore her, but they don't shift their focus. They're still mentally obsessing over her every move. Still wondering, will she text back? Is she thinking about me? That's not true detachment. That's pretending. The only way to truly detach is to replace obsession with progress. Not distraction. Not numbing. But real, intentional self-work. Let's break that down. First, your goals. When was the last time you were truly obsessed with your own life? I'm not talking about having vague dreams. I mean actual, trackable, fire-in-your-gut goals. Money, fitness, business, skills, legacy. Start with something measurable. You want to make $10,000 per month? Build a plan. You want to get in shape? Join the gym, hire a coach, show up 5 days a week. Because here's the truth. The more time you spend becoming the man you're meant to be, the less time you have to think about someone who's unsure about you. Next, your body. Lifting weights isn't just physical. It's spiritual. Every rep teaches patience. Every session builds confidence. You become disciplined, centered, sharper. And when your body transforms, your mind follows. You walk different. You speak different. You carry yourself with the silent energy of someone who knows. Women can feel that. That's masculine magnetism. It doesn't chase, it attracts. Third, your mind. You must declutter the noise. And that means journaling. Write every day. Write out your thoughts, your emotions, your patterns. Get raw and real with yourself. Ask questions like, why do I obsess over someone who gives me breadcrumbs? Where does this need for validation come from? What am I afraid of losing, her or my identity through her? Journaling gives you clarity. It helps you see the cycle you've been stuck in and break it. And once your thoughts are on paper, it's time to clean them up with philosophy. That's where Stoicism comes in. Read Marcus Aurelius. Read Epictetus. Read Seneca. Immerse yourself in the teachings of men who mastered their emotions. Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Let that sink in. You don't control whether she calls you. You don't control her feelings. You don't control the past. But you do control your response. And that response shapes your identity. When you apply Stoicism daily, you become unfazed. You don't ignore her to punish. You ignore because you're busy building an empire within. And meditation is how you stay grounded in that process. Just 10 minutes a day. Breathe. Be still. Let the thoughts come and go. You'll realize something powerful. Most of the noise in your head is just fear, dressed up as logic. Meditation sharpens your awareness. It trains you to pause before reacting, to observe before engaging. That's power. Now, let's talk about the magnetic shift that happens next. Because when you start journaling, lifting, reading Stoic texts, meditating, you change. You stop being the man who waits by the phone. You become the man she checks her phone for. Why? Because you're no longer seeking love from a place of lack. You're living in abundance. And energy doesn't lie. People feel when you've moved on energetically, when your attention is no longer fixated on them, but on your purpose, your vision, your mission. That's when she starts to notice. That's when she feels the void. That's when the tables turn. But by then, something inside you has shifted. You're no longer the man who needs her to feel whole. You're the man who realizes he was always whole. This isn't about being too cool to care. It's about caring deeply about yourself. It's about finally realizing that your energy is a currency, and where you invest it determines the wealth of your life. So invest wisely. Every moment you spend in self-mastery is a step toward becoming unignorable. You don't need to flex. You don't need to post thirst traps. You don't need to play games. Your growth speaks louder than any text. Your peace makes more noise than your presence ever could. So focus on your body, your mind, your mission, and trust. When you shift your focus back to you, the world shifts with it. She'll feel it. But more importantly, you'll feel it. And that's the point. Let's bring this full circle. From the beginning, we've talked about one powerful shift. Moving your energy away from chasing her and toward building you. Most men never learn this. They spend years in the same cycle, texting too much, trying too hard, waiting on someone else's attention to feel valuable. They don't realize they're giving their power away with every needy action, every overstep, every anxious double text. But what Stoicism teaches us, what the great thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus lived by, is simple. Control what you can. Let go of the rest. And what can you control? Your thoughts, your habits, your focus, your response. You can't force someone to like you. You can't convince them to stay. But you can choose how much of your life you surrender to their absence. When you pull your energy back, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, something incredible happens. You become calm. You become clear. You become unshakable. That's where your power lives. Not in pressure. Not in performance. But in presence. Because presence is rare. And rare is valuable. When you stop chasing, she starts wondering. When you stop reacting, she starts reflecting. When you stop needing, she starts noticing. Not because you manipulated her, but because you finally gave her something worth noticing, a man who leads himself. Stoicism is not about being emotionless. It's about understanding that emotions don't have to control your actions. It's about choosing peace over panic, focus over fixation, purpose over people-pleasing. Every part of your journey, from letting go of control to owning your inner state to embracing detachment, not only brings clarity, it brings confidence. And that confidence becomes magnetic. So if you've been wondering, will she notice if I ignore her? The truth is, it doesn't matter. Because once you redirect that energy back to your goals, your growth, your greatness, you stop needing her to notice at all. You realize the point was never to get her back. The point was to get yourself back. You realize that indifference isn't cruelty, it's calm. That space isn't rejection, it's protection. And that silence, when chosen from strength, speaks volumes louder than any words ever could. This entire process is about more than dating. It's about mastery. Self-mastery. It's about becoming the man who doesn't flinch when things don't go his way. Who doesn't beg for attention. Who doesn't hinge his worth on someone else's interest. It's about realizing that your time, your energy, and your presence are sacred, and you no longer give them away cheaply. So let's recap what we've covered. You've learned that trying too hard, over-pursuing, and seeking validation only pushes people away. You've seen how real strength comes from controlling what you can, yourself, and letting go of what you can't. You've understood the power of psychological reactance, how mystery and space can create attraction. You've been reminded that ignoring only works when it's backed by genuine self-focus, not passive aggression. You've been guided to shift your obsession into your goals, your fitness, your purpose. And now, you see that true attraction begins with alignment, when your actions reflect your worth. This isn't about playing games. It's about playing for keeps, with your life. And as we close, let this quote sink deep into your bones. He who angers you controls you. He who ignores you empowers himself. Because you are not here to beg. You are not here to chase. You are here to lead, to rise, to become. And the world, including her, will always notice a man who no longer needs to be noticed. Be that man. Becoming that man isn't a destination. It's a daily decision. A decision to choose stillness over chaos, growth over obsession, and self-worth over external approval. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be intentional. Every rep in the gym, every silent moment in meditation, every page you turn from a Stoic philosopher, it all adds up. You start radiating something different. Something she, and the world, can't ignore. Because the truth is, when you finally become enough for yourself, you stop trying to prove your worth to anyone else. With that said, thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And until next time.